My dad's name was Steve. A caring and compassionate physician, healing people was in his soul. He and my mother, Barb, had 4 children, my brothers, Paul, Michael, Matthew, and me. Our early days in Northern Ontario were spent catching fish, watching the sunset, and skipping stones on the lake. We were living the dream. But somewhere along the way, my dad started to become someone we didn't recognize. It started with little things, but over time, he became explosive and abusive. One year, it got so bad that my mother instinctively took us out of town for the summer. By the time we got back, he had latched on to an extreme religious ideology, and anyone who didn't share his beliefs, including us, was not safe around him. By the time he was 45, Dad's behavior caught up with him at work, and his medical license was revoked. Our hero fell from grace before our eyes. He spent his 50s writing books about salvation and delivering pamphlets on the street. Having lost everything, he moved into my late grandmother's home. He never let us pass the front door. Then, 3 years ago, my dad died. Disasters occur all over the world at different magnitudes. Earthquakes, wildfires, and floods are rapid onset disasters. Others unfold over time. After my dad died, and we went to clean up the house, we discovered firsthand the wreckage of the slow-moving natural disaster in his brain. Walking into the house for the first time, it was dark and dusty, with a lifetime of stuff piled up so high it almost touched the ceiling. We cleared a path and started chipping away at the rubble one weekend at a time. In the chaos, we discovered reminders of the person he was. We found his beautiful paintings, landscapes of acrylic on canvas, waves crashing on rocks, peaceful cottage vistas, a photo from his days working on a First Nations reserve fresh out of school. He was wearing a brown checkered shirt rolled up to the elbows, a stethoscope flung around his neck, beaming as he held a newborn baby he had just delivered, her parents on either side of him. We found a notebook where he kept meticulous records of his activities. The very last entry, a poem. According to a note at the top of the page, I had asked him for one that Christmas. It was a page long, cracking jokes in his usual self-deprecating way. The last 2 lines read, "So to finish this poem, there is no one above you, and for the rest of my life, you will know that I love you." In the spring following his death, we received the results of a genetic test. My dad's mental illness was actually the result of a genetic mutation causing frontotemporal degeneration. A mutation that was highly penetrable and autosomal dominant, meaning my brothers and I each have a 50% chance of inheriting it. A mutation that has caused FTD to progress in my dad and my aunt and my grandfather. A mutation that has robbed my parents and my grandparents and my ancestors of their dreams. A mutation that has robbed my dad of knowing his grandchildren. My family's story is just one story. We know by current estimates that there are 60,000 people living with FTD in the US. But we also know that this number is likely an undercount. It doesn't include people who, like my dad, are misdiagnosed with other mental illnesses. It doesn't include the vulnerable and marginalized in our society who don't have anyone advocating for them. It doesn't include the people who are part of the collateral damage of this disease, family, friends, and society at large. All of this makes AFTD's work so important. Through AFTD, I've found support from others who have been through what I've been through and understand the weight that I carry on my shoulders every single day. Through AFTD, I've met brilliant minds, researchers who help me bridge the gap between despair and hope because they believe that we and they will cure FTD. Through AFTD, I've met heroes of all kinds who have selflessly shown up to help in a time of need. Through this community, Dom and I, my husband Dom and I, learned that without knowing your status, you can have children with 100% certainty that they don't carry the mutation. Last December, we were thrilled, over the moon, when we found out that I was pregnant. This September 2nd, when our beautiful boy was born, the doctor put him on my chest. 9 months of anticipation, and he was finally here. When he looked up at me for the first time with his dark, almond-shaped eyes, I saw my dad. We named him Hugo, which means one who is bright in heart, mind, and spirit. When we took Hugo home the day after he was born, I held him in our rocking chair. Louis Armstrong's What a Wonderful World played on the speakers. I'd heard that song so many times before, but it had never sounded so beautiful. I was falling in love. But what followed was the heartbreaking truth that now I have everything to lose. A 50% chance, a genetic coin toss. It's the first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning, and it's the last thing I think about when I try to fall asleep at night. How much time do we have? What will happen to my best friends, my 3 brothers? At Dad's funeral, his friend Jim shared a story. We were having dinner one Sunday evening as a family when Dad answered the phone. Jim's father had been struggling with terminal cancer, and his symptoms were getting worse. Although Jim was only expecting a brief phone call without missing a beat, Dad's response was, "Sure, I'm just finishing up my birthday cake and I'll be right over." And sure enough, Jim said, "You jumped in your car, made the long drive out to us, checked on my father, and comforted my mother. That's the kind of man you were." Words can't do justice to how grateful I am to each and every one of you for your significant contribution to this important cause. On behalf of my family and all of the families that are struggling with this cruel disease, I say thank you. Your generosity will get us closer to a cure. Your humanity gives me hope. The phone rang, and not only did you pick it up, but you showed up in a heroic way. That's the kind of person you are. Thank you.